I'm the oldest Sam.
I'm Hunter Davis.
I'm Zach Sandler.
I'm Jay Moore's son.
Andrew Anderson.
And you are listening to the Local Sounds.
And you're listening to the Local Sounds
And you are listening to the Local Sounds
And you're listening
podcast.
to the Local Sounds
And you're listening to
podcast.
the Local Sounds podcast
with my friend Taylor Davis.
My friend Taylor Davis.
My friend Taylor Davis.
My good friend Taylor Davis.
My friend Taylor Davis.
We are back, folks. Welcome to week 2, season 2, episode 2 of the Local Sounds podcast. I'm your host, singer-songwriter Taylor James Davis, and we are so glad to have all you back listening with us this week at the Local Sounds podcast. This week, we sat down with David Rotella of Light of Day, Canada, and had a great conversation about music, the music scene in Asbury, and much, much more. So make sure you guys check out that episode on our YouTube page and SoundCloud page. On tonight's episode, we're going to play more music off my upcoming record, At Night in the Dark, as well as interview a prominent member of the comedy scene right here in my city of Miami, Florida. We will talk more about our guests in just a few minutes, but first, some music. This week, you all heard my new single, Cold in July, which is available on all the streaming platforms. Tonight, we're going to play the second single off my upcoming record, which I came out with about 7 months ago. The song is called Gone. I wrote the song when I returned from New Jersey on a tour in January of this year, 2020. I was on the high of my life, coming off my best tour of my career so far and coming back to Miami with that feeling of importance to write songs that were important. I spent years writing songs that were about filling up the space. How many words could I jam into a bar? How much verbal imagery could I vomit on you at one time? I still feel that way sometimes with my words. But I wanted to write songs that had less words and more impact. These songs on this record are my attempt at that. Gone was about the idea of staying when you want to leave. As a traveler, a musician, a gypsy, a transient, a man of the road, I like to get on the highway and go, 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 go. Stop in your town, play your dive bar, and head off to the next town. But what I've learned in the last few years is that in order to become a man, you can't always go and you can't always run. Sometimes you have to stay. You have to stay and you have to feel. I think that lesson has taught me more and more about becoming a man than most lessons I've learned. Is it easy? Hell no. It's everyday work. But it's a task worth working for, especially for people you love, and especially if you're trying to love yourself. Then, during the recording of the song, we entered a phase in our world where we all have to stay at home. You can't go anywhere. There is no going, no choice to go, only to stay. It's wild sometimes how your own creations can prepare you, teach you, or in this case, scare the shit out of you. I realized from writing enough songs that you have to be the guy in your songs. And if you're not like him, you have to work on becoming more like him with every song that you write. The songs are your best version of yourself. And the rest of your life is living up to that. And this song is making me live up to it. Featuring my friends Nay Rose on the violin, Ambery Johnny doing the licks on the acoustic, and my love, Danny Ray, singing the chorus with me. You can't get with the going till the going is gone. Bumming cigarettes from an old Cuban man. Life's gone by too fast these days. The longest hard girl, we gotta get up. Every time I try to leave, I stay. So hold on tight, girl, the night is still young. Drank so much that my fingers are numb. Played myself and I played you too, hoping tonight that we'll make it through. 'Cause you can't get with the going till the going is gone. If you can't get with the times, they'll surely pass you by. high 'cause it's killing me quick. A glass of wine and one more smoke. Lately I've been feeling you slipping away. I hope I'm not the butt of the joke. But I gotta be there for you now, 'cause hope is all that we got in our hands. And I hope you see the day someone like you will make me stay. 'Cause you can't get where they're going till the going is gone. If you can't get with the times, then they'll surely pass you by. 'Cause you can't get where they're going till the going is gone. Until it's gone, until it's gone. 'Cause you can't get where they're going till the going is gone. If you can't get with the times, then they'll surely pass you by. 'Cause you can't get where they're going till the going is gone. Till it's gone, until it's gone. And we are back on the Local Sounds podcast. That was Gone off my upcoming record, At Night in the Dark. And now we're off and running. It's time to introduce tonight's special guest who's in the studio with me here in Miami, Florida. This man, in my opinion, has become a real star of the underground comedy scene in Miami. I first saw this man on the stage at the open mic at Churchill's. Now keep in mind, in the last few years, I've seen probably 500 plus comedians. And the truth is, most of them have a very, very difficult time winning over the crowd on the backstage patio at Churchill's. Filled with boozers, hecklers, and folks that'll say anything at a moment's notice to throw you off course. This guy seared through the crowd. He got up on stage, had powerful bits, and watching not only him, but the audience react to what he was doing was a special moment. Hosting for a couple years, you know, you see and you remember those special moments, whether it's with comedians or musicians or folks of any background. If they hit and they hit hard, then the audience responds, you respond, they feel it. It's an energy that's created in the room. In the last few months, I've been studying comedy more than ever before, and I would relate his comedy stylings. I told him recently, somebody like John Mulaney, and I really think that you guys should check out what he's doing. And today we're going to talk to him. We got Jack Norris with us. Jack, thank you, my brother, for hanging with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. You really just gave my ego a hand job with that intro.
You know what?
John Mulaney.
You know what? I hadn't seen his stand-up that much, and recently I started watching it. And I was like, who does he remind me of? And then I saw the comparison.
That's
yeah, he's great.
I love John Mulaney. He's fantastic.
A great guy. Well, thank you for coming and hanging out, man. I appreciate it. I know that everyone's a little COVID scared, you know, and so I appreciate you coming.
No, it's okay. You know, I've had like 7 or 8 cotton swabs like shoved up my nose by now, so I feel like I'm possibly immune.
Yes, you might be.
You know,
you might be.
And I'm safe when I can be.
Yeah, so. It's difficult, you know, sometimes because after so long of wanting to go and do stuff, now that there's a few options available, you want to go, but then you're thinking, should I go? You know, I know that thought goes through a lot of folks' heads.
And that's the thing, especially with something like comedy where, you know, there's a million people out there trying to do it, you know, and different people at mics every night. You want to just be as safe as you can. You know, I mean, I bring my mask with me. I'm in the process of getting my own microphone, you know, just for the foreseeable future, I can just, you know, use my own mic and not have to worry about, you know, anything getting spread. But, you know, it's an honor just to be able to, you know, go back out and do it. Because for a while there, I wasn't so sure if we were going to be, you know, outside again. Yeah.
And I had the thing that really comes to my mind when you say that is I had a friend tell me recently, a music friend, he said, and I guess this is how I kind of want to start, you know, talking to the folks about you and getting people to have, you know, if they don't know you or they do know you, get to know you a little bit better. I talked to a music friend recently, and he verbalized what I had been thinking since COVID started. Was he said, man, you know what? I had so much momentum that I had been building up with my music, and then COVID struck, and I feel like I'm back to square one. Do you feel like that at all with comedy?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Especially, because the Churchill's night that you're talking about, that was like the week before everything really went into lockdown. That was one of my last big shows. And I had been feeling at that point where I was ready to like fully commit to it and just like hit the ground running. And then all of a sudden, like, it stopped. And it was okay at first because, like, I don't know if you know this, but before, my career before comedy was just being a pothead who stayed home and like played video games all day. So like I had that shit on lock.
You sound like a comedian more than ever now.
I had that shit on lock, but then it's like it gets boring because you can't go to any of the places that you were going to, and I feel like I was just kind of getting into that groove, of going out and trying to crush it, and we're kind of getting that back right now, but you never know. It's like one problem, one little misstep is kind of all it takes to potentially
to set things off. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like I'm grateful to be back performing, but I definitely did get that feeling of just like complete halt, especially for comedy where,
everything's about momentum.
You can't do a fucking stand-up comedy show on Zoom.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Like, what are they going to do? Send little hearts
yeah.
in the chat?
Yeah, they're not going to
suck.
tip. They're not going to donate. They only tip to the musicians, I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the money I got because they're like, man, this guy's probably eating ramen noodles on a regular basis. I don't think they're going to tip comedy. They probably won't. Are they going to go on Zoom and watch comedy?
Have comedians ever gotten tips from their shows? Is that a thing? I've never seen it. I wouldn't want to tip a comedian. Like,
oh yeah.
Comedy is like
I love comedy, but I've never tipped a comedian. But maybe that's a thing. That's a post-COVID thing.
Well, it's just kind of like I'm grateful for the audience, because it's just therapy, but with judgment. Like your therapist isn't going to judge you for that shit, but those people, they'll be like, all right, here's what people really think of what you're saying.
The act of the arts, whether it's comedy or music, is basically like having a therapy session. It feels like in front of 50 people, 10 people, 5 people, 250 people. If you're doing it right, comedy or music, you're bearing your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going up there, and I mean, you're presenting a part of you that you don't normally present to a shit ton of people that you don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really fun part about it. It's kind of what drew me in. Because my friends have heard all my stories before, so. Yeah.
And as you were telling me, earlier, and I know it from being out on the scene enough and hanging with some of the comics, is that a lot of nights when you show up, you're performing for your comic friends, just like the musicians show up, and the only people that are there to see you are the musicians.
And that's like the worst crowd to perform to. I mean, I love like the comics down here. I love my comic friends. I don't mean that, but it's like. I know from experience that when you're at a comedy show and you're also performing, you're not thinking about you're thinking about what you're going to say when you go up there, Yeah. So it's like a lot of people are kind of, I feel like, in their heads about their sets, or, they're focusing on what they're going to do up there. They're not really focusing on you, but it's still nice to be able to have some kind of environment to like practice your jokes on. Yeah. It's great to test your shit out. Yeah. Because if you can make a comedian laugh at one of your jokes, then
you got something.
Then you
got a good bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I know we were talking earlier, you're good friends with Sergio Mendez.
Oh, yeah.
And,
love that guy.
Yeah, and what a funny guy. Theo Samuels, there's a lot of funny guys. And I'm just, speaking to the three of you as close friends of mine. But there's a lot of funny out there, especially in this city. A lot of funny. And I think that no one ever really talks about that. No one says, do you know what the comedy scene is like in Miami, Florida? Yeah. But I think there's a lot of strong comedians.
There's a lot of them, and I feel like I see a new one every time I go to a mic. It's there's a lot of hidden talent down here, and everybody's hungry too. Everybody's back, especially after being inside for so long. Like people are really like all kind of on that Sergio mindset of just like getting out there and like hopping on stage, So it's cool to see. Like I'm seeing all kinds of new people that I've never, really seen before in the scene. It's interesting for me too to be a part of, not just as a comedian but as like an audience member, like seeing all these people.
Yeah, and not only that, but the fact that I mentioned the three of you, Sergio, Theo, for you guys, to all equally be funny in your own ways and to socialize with one another, I believe that is similar, and we find a lot of similarities, I feel like, between comedy and musicians. I heard Seth Rogen say on Seinfeld's podcast, he said that there's some sort of connection between comedians and musicians. I don't quite know what it is yet. Yeah. I don't think anybody does, but there's something there. And I think it's like hanging around with great musicians. They sharpen your skills. Hopefully you do something that sharpens theirs. And I think that the comedians that move in a pack that we know, really sharpen one another, because you see your boy up there and he kills it, and then you feel an obligation to at least reach that level.
Yeah, you can't be the only one
supersize
not
it.
to kill it,
Yeah, of course.
And that is the thing too. Is I'm a firm believer that you're a product of like who you spend your time with.
For sure.
The people you're around definitely affect how you grow as a person, and especially when you're doing comedy and you want to be around comics that encourage you to be better. You want to see Theo or Sergio or whoever go up there and fucking crush it. So then when they get off stage, you're like, oh man, like I can't be the only one that doesn't fucking crush it up there. Like I want to, and it's cool to be able to bounce ideas off of each other.
Now, remind me to ask you about, I want to ask you in a little bit about, not to put you on the spot, but to get your real opinion about comedians that you like around here. But I want to go back to that night and I would definitely say there were some special nights at Churchill's in 2 years of hosting, but I will say that your night, if it doesn't rank number one, it ranks in the top 2 or 3. Your feature night with Veronica Herrera, because the audience, I think we were used to, after the first month or two of struggles when I took over the open mic, we were used to like 25 people, then it got up to 50, then it was like 60, 70 people on the regular, but I felt like your night was just, you couldn't even move. Like I was trying to get from the back wall through the crowd to get to the stage to introduce you and then introduce Veronica, and the crowd was massive. I remember that I knew the crowd was so good because when I was on stage, I was trying to get them to like chant back at me, like that energy was there.
Yeah.
It was tell me your memories. I mean, it's been less than a year. What are your memories of that night?
Yeah, so I mean, we had a really good turnout that night, like you were saying. That was kind of my like, how when your friends find out you do comedy, they're like, oh, I want to go to one of your shows. I wish I could make it to your show. It's like, oh, I can't make it. Like, let me know. I want to go to one. And so this was the one where I was like, hey, listen, like, this is the show. You better fucking come. You better like back up those words. Yeah. And like, they really did. I mean, I had like, close friends, family, people I haven't seen from high school in like years. My friend's parents.
Everyone was out.
It was just, and so it was so like, you talked to me for a little bit. I was fucking nervous as shit.
Yeah.
Because this was the first time I had ever done like a 15-minute set, and I had props.
Yeah, that was memorable for sure.
Yeah, I had fucking props. Like some 2-bit Carrot Top. But it was also just like, when I got up there, it was I saw everybody in the crowd, and I was just like, wow, like I could literally take a shit up here and get like a standing ovation. Like it was just so exhilarating.
They loved you for sure, and
I'm so grateful for it too. Because
I think that set you on your way. I think that comedians, musicians, anyone in the arts, they find something happens on a night or a particular moment, and then they run with that. But I don't know anyone else that had a kickoff time like you had that night. I mean, that was incredible.
Yeah.
We, to this day, we talk about it amongst the musicians about, damn, that night was crazy. It was fucking nuts for sure.
I can bring them out, man. I can fill a room.
It was crazy. And you know what? Most people, they don't, I hate to say it, but they don't promote the open mic features as much. But it's a program, I feel like, is that people start out there, they work their chops, they get a feature, and then from a feature, a lot of the times, I mean, the way that I got put on big stage shows were because, I went to the open mic a few times, was able to get a feature, and then while I was performing, a couple owners of different bars just happened to be there with their wives or whatever, and one show led to another, and everything kind of springboarded from that. So the hope is that when people come up in the open mic, that they can springboard to the main stage, and then somebody sees them there, and it goes from there.
Well, that's exactly
which happened to you.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, because I think when you offered it to me, I was like the last guy on the lineup. It was like 1 a.m, like, and I was kind of dejected about it,
Yeah, it was late. It's late.
Yeah, but then like the 4 people that were there were laughing really hard, and I ended up getting a feature out of it. So it's like, it's stuff you never expect.
That was in the green room, right? Was that in the green room?
No, that was outside.
Out back. Yeah. Okay.
That was the first time I ever went. Sergio put me on and was like, "Hey, you should come to this one." And like at the time, I was only going to Speakeasy Theater on like North Beach.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm gonna put my big boy pants on.
Yeah.
And go do some big boy comedy.
Yeah, it can be intimidating.
You gotta get there early.
Had you been there before to Churchill's?
I'd been to Churchill's. Yeah. one of my friends is in a band called the Hales.
Okay.
They're like an indie rock band, started
Yeah.
up in Gainesville, but they're all from Miami. And so I went there for like a concert they were having with this group on Litter. I've worn like some of their shirts.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
yeah.
I was wearing it at the Churchill's thing. But
Yeah.
it was
I've
like a
heard of
bring
that.
your
I've heard
own
of
cup, like everybody was refilling one. It was really sweet, and it was that was the first time I was there that I can remember being there. It was
Because a lot of people they get intimidated about coming there. I learned, I've heard that story from plenty of people. But
I think it's cool. I think it's a cool spot.
You just seemed like you fit. You were like awkwardly fitting in perfectly.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know if this guy should be doing this or not. But you got up there and it was
and now
it was
you
fucking
can see
great.
the full transformation. Years later, I'm just like a full on hippie.
Couple times to Churchill's and we ruin you. We absolutely ruin you. Now tell me, what was your first moment where you were like, I'm gonna be a comedian?
So, it actually wasn't stand up, which is the most interesting part of it. I had done stand up one time in college, and the way it finally made I've been talking about doing it, since my freshman year, and I just never like committed. And then one day I was like, okay, there's an open mic. I'm gonna tell all my friends about it, and then I'm a bitch if I don't go. So I went. I did pretty good. And there was another comedian there who performed, and she saw my set, and she was starting
Now this was your first time.
my very first time.
Okay.
First time ever doing comedy. And she was starting with two other guys, like a sketch comedy group on campus.
Okay.
Called Friday Night Live. And it was like a Saturday Night Live style variety sketch comedy show. They were gonna have props and musical guests, like it was a full-on like production. It was the first time they were ever going to be starting that club. And they reached out to me to audition, and I submitted a sketch called Actual Shark Tank.
Okay.
And the premise is that it's an episode of Shark Tank, but there's a guy that goes on the show that doesn't understand how it works, and so he brings like a real shark
Okay.
with him to the show.
Okay.
And the joke is that all the sharks are like super into it except for one of them, and
Yes.
almost made it to the live show, but
That was your first bit, or you had been coming up with bits?
that was the first sketch I ever wrote.
Okay.
Like the first comedy sketch. And so I got in, and I was just that whole process, like building something from the ground up. Nobody had ever done a show like this before. We were like the odds were stacked against us. We had to change our name to Wednesday Night Live because we couldn't get the theater on a Friday. Like it was
Okay.
so, but it was great. Like just working.
Hilarious, right there.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Exactly. And just working with all these like-minded people. I got one of my own sketches on there, and I remember exactly when it happened. We did the live show, and the entire week we had been rehearsing. We were so nervous. We were like, are people going to think this is funny? Like, we've been performing the same sketches in front of each other for weeks. Like, what if they're not funny? And there were technical problems, and everything went off without a hitch the night of the show. Like, it was just like high energy. The first sketch crushed it, and the energy in the room changed, and we went out there and we put on probably, I would say, the best fucking show that FSU's campus has ever seen. I'll put that on paper right now. And I remember being like the last sketch, my friend hit himself over the head with a breakaway bottle, and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
That's it. That was your moment.
That moment right there, I was like, yeah, I'm breaking on stage. This is what I have to do.
So do you see yourself more in the future, 5-10 years from now? Do you see yourself doing stand-up, the stand-up part of it, or do you see yourself doing more in that acting type of creating, seeing Saturday Night Live, Lorne Michaels thing?
I like to think like both, but I definitely see myself as more of like a writer.
Okay.
Like I would definitely love to perform in sketches, but I think my real strengths are in my writing. I'm in, that's my degree is in English. Because math is hard, so I couldn't do biology. Couldn't be a marine biologist.
Well, at least you went to college, okay?
Yeah.
I know all. Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to. Maybe not like SNL would be a great experience. I think regardless of like what you think the show's like now, I think it's a great thing to be a part of. You know?
There's so much history.
Exactly.
So much history,
and it's something you like. I feel like a lot of comedians aspire to that.
Well, there's been a lot of great guys that have, and I don't know if you would have been, if both of us would have been born when the Sandlers and the Spades and people like that were on there, Farley, Norm Macdonald, but I don't know if those people that came up with those guys thought, oh, these guys are great. I wonder if it took longevity and stuff for people to look back and be like, oh, they were great, because I think that there are some great guys now, that have come out of
There's
SNL.
some terrific people on SNL right now.
Yeah, Andy Samberg, and Pete Davidson. I don't know if Pete's still on, but he came out of SNL.
He's like seldom used.
Yeah,
but he's great. And Bill Hader's come out of
Bill
there.
Hader's great. I'm thinking of the woman that was in Bridesmaids,
Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig is hilarious.
Fantastic. Yeah, and they've got some killers on there right now, man. Kyle Mooney and Beck Bennett are.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they're too good for SNL. But I like seeing when their weird sketches.
And we talked about Mulaney. We talked about Mulaney.
He was a writer on the show. He wasn't even planning on being a stand-up comedian, and look at him now. He's probably one of the hottest stand-ups out there. I would say.
So here's kind of taking us back to what we were talking about is 5 comedians. If you had to come up with 5 comedians, they don't have to be in order if you don't want. Or we do 3.
They're not going to be in order. I knew you were going to ask. No, I'll do 5. 5 is easier.
Okay,
trust me.
5 is easier. Okay.
Man. Okay. Well, Dave Chappelle is like up there for sure.
Legend.
I'd put Mulaney on there definitely.
Okay.
Big fan of John Mulaney. I love Eric Andre. I can't leave him off that list. I think he's phenomenal. Nathan Fielder is really good. I don't know. He's not really a stand-up, so maybe that's cheating. But he has got a show on Comedy Central. He's a very awkward Canadian guy who like helps people with like out of the box business ideas, and it's fucking funny. Funniest guy I've ever seen. Man, and then the last one. I
put you on the spot.
Yeah, no,
I didn't give you any of these questions in advance.
The last one I think I have to give it to Hannibal Buress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what I learned through some local comedians and through studying comedy more myself is that there's comedians that you get and comedians that you don't get, but just because you get them or don't get them doesn't necessarily mean that they are or are not funny. If that makes sense. Like Hannibal's somebody I've never I don't get it, but I get that he's funny, but I just don't get it.
No, of course, and that's the thing. Hannibal's very deadpan, and that's the thing. A lot of people, especially like Eric Andre, for example, like there's a ton of people that don't understand what that is, But I just think that shit is so funny. And there's people that are definitely like better at stand up than Eric Andre and Hannibal Buress, but I feel like they've made a huge impact to me.
Yeah.
Like, as a comedian coming up right now.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to know is comedians that had an impact on you.
And Bill Hader too. I'm sneaking him in there, number 6.
Bill's great.
I love
Bill's
him
great.
so much. Barry's the best TV show I've ever seen.
The first time I saw him was when he did the old Jewish guy in the track suit for the James Franco roast. I don't know if you saw that.
The president of Hollywood. President of comedy or some shit.
And it was great.
Yeah.
And just everything he was doing was funny. The way he pronounced Andy Samberg's name was just hilarious. I'm not even going to try to do that impression. But, really, really funny guy. But in the last 3 or 4 months of really studying comedy, some of the new guys that I think are really fantastic, but it kind of shows I have like a little bit of a darker sense of humor. I love Jeselnik. We talked about that. I love the newest one that I was crying the other night was Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was crying. I don't know why. I just thought it was
a funny
a moment.
Guy. Those are two. Yeah, and they push the boundaries a little bit more.
Yeah,
and I think there's good in that. Like it's because a lot of comics don't really do that.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys I listed, like I would say the only ones that really push boundaries would be Eric and Dave.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like the shit fucking Jeselnik says on stage is ridiculous.
Crazy, yeah.
Ridiculous, but he's made his brand on being that comedian. Like I think it works based on like the type of like how he carries himself and how he just doesn't really give a shit is, it's not necessarily for everybody, but it works really well for him.
Yeah, and I think it's even more difficult to be a guy doing a 1-hour special doing one-liners the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think he does a really good job at that. The other guy that I was thinking of is Jimmy Carr. I really like watching Jimmy Carr. Yeah, because that's another one-liner guy, and his stuff is equally as edgy as Jeselnik's, I think,
Yeah,
I know my comedy stuff now, man. Just a little bit.
You might know more than me. It's, because I really do, like, I watch a lot of stand-up. I watch way more sketch comedy. I think that's, like, that's my real passion. There's guys out there like Tim Robinson. He was on SNL for, like, a season, and you probably barely saw him because he had so many weird sketch ideas that they never used any. But then he got with Netflix, and he just came up with this sketch comedy show that's just so strange and like off the wall, and it's like one of the funniest things I've seen in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and now with you know the way that Netflix does their business is that I read that, you know, I watched The Irishman and saw that even a film bill that has Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino, Joe Pesci couldn't get a deal from any of the Hollywood studios. So they went and got the deal to make the movie with Netflix. Now you see all the great comedy specials are on Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, Netflix knows how to treat their comedians. You know, like I see it a lot. I don't know if you've been hearing what's been happening with, you know, Chappelle.
Not really yet. Oh yeah, with David Chappelle's situation. Yeah, with how they're doing his specials on there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, they had the Chappelle show on Netflix and they have like complete legal rights to stream it, but you know, he released a whole special where he was talking about how, you know, Comedy Central, I think, basically had him sign his life away, you know, to make this show, and he needed to because he was a young guy in his 20s.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know what any of this fancy contract bullshit is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Netflix was like, okay, like we understand this makes you unhappy. They took it off. It's not on there anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what? I've been keeping up with it a little bit, and I saw that he has some, you know, disgruntled issues with them, and wow, it's a crazy time, and I think that artists are trying to figure out how to navigate streaming platforms, you know, of all different types, and a lot of those artists, when they're young, you know, they sign bad deals, and I think that I said a lot recently is that, you know, maybe my music hasn't gone as far as I would like it to, but I own all my own stuff.
Yeah,
you know, so
there's so much power in that.
And at the end of the when I'm 70 years old, you know, if I'm still doing what I'm doing now, I'll have a catalog of stuff and I'll own it. You know? And
well, I mean, that's the thing that happens with musicians too. From what I've seen, is like they get fucked over. By those record companies, probably even worse than comedians do.
Tarnished. There's so many. Two of my favorites, you know my love of Springsteen and probably of Tom Petty's. Both signed bad record deals. The Eagles signed bad record deals. So, and that's just a few, you know, of the big ones. But we got, you know, to talking so well. We've been going for a little bit. So here's what we're gonna do. You're listening to the Local Sounds podcast. My name's Taylor Davis. We're interviewing the funny Jack Norris today here in Miami, Florida, in the studio. We're gonna play one of the comedy bits. Whichever one that you want us to play,
we'll go with the first one. I gave them some interesting title names.
Okay.
This one's called Beluga Whale Bonanza.
Okay.
And it's about, you know, I'm very passionate about the sea.
Yes.
And this was about a very interesting experience I had on a field trip to SeaWorld in the 10th grade.
And where was this? Where did you do this at?
I did this at Speakeasy Theater on North Beach. R.I.P.
Wow. Yes.
Lost to COVID. Jeff Quintana, great guy that runs that room, and it wasn't even my main set, you know, because they do a little thing on their mic where you tell a 2-minute story.
Yeah.
And so I ran up there because I had like a little thing, and it was just so like stream of consciousness. I've never been able to replicate it like I did during this clip, and I feel really good about it. So
well, this is Jack Norris doing some comedy at the Speakeasy Theater in North Beach. You're listening to the Local Sound Podcast with Taylor Davis. Check him out.
Ex-girlfriend stuff. She said that I used to talk about the ocean too much, which is like a weird problem. But now I'm gonna tell you guys about the time I witnessed beluga whale sexual assault. So I went to SeaWorld for like in the 10th grade. This was before Blackfish came out, so it was still cool to go there. And I really wanted to see the beluga whale exhibit because I thought they were, you know, very cool, majestic animals. And this was before like I went to college and I found out that like dolphins are kind of rapey. And so we went to the Arctic exhibit, and like I was really excited, and like I'm walking down the path, and there's like a little family, and they're in there, and they're doing that little like experience where you get to like kiss the beluga whales on the forehead and shit. And so then I'm like, fuck this like land stuff. I want to go see what they look like in the water. So we go around to the other side, and I don't know. Has anybody seen like a white radish before? No? Yes? Okay. Like that's what a beluga whale's penis looks like, and it's important. It's important because like, when I got down there, basically what I saw was like a female beluga whale swimming away from like these two males, just like full like dong out, like really in heat, going after her, and she was like curving them at every opportunity. Like she curved them harder than my girlfriend curved me in the set that I told you guys earlier. And so these guys, you know, they got little excited because, their dicks were already out and it was, a heated chase, so they just started kind of like splooging all over the tank, for lack of a better word. And I was really fucked up about it. I was like, this is like so dark. And like, also there was like family like up there kissing these like semen-covered beluga whales. It was rough. It was rough, and I like never looked at them the same way again. That's it.
We are back, Local Sounds Podcast, with your boy Taylor Davis. I'm here with my good friend Jack Norris. You just heard a little bit of Jack's comedy at the Speakeasy Theater in North Beach in Miami, which, like Jack said, rest in peace, another great venue lost to the COVID.
Yeah, I'll say this, though. I'm in like the little Speakeasy group chat, and Jeff Quintana does have like a new room down in Delray. I think it's called the Coop.
Okay.
You can look that up if you guys are interested. A little too far for me, but he's still doing, improv classes and stuff like that. And that was always a very cool place for, creatives to just go try out shit.
There's not a lot of places. I mean, I guess there's a few maybe, but I don't really see. Churchill's for me was an example of a place where us musicians could gather as like a home base. I don't really see that for music or comedy right now. There's no home base gathering for folks.
Yeah, I mean, the closest is, Red Bar and Sweet Caroline's, and those are places that were kind of going before the pandemic, and just recently came back. And I've never been. I went to Red Bar the first time like 3 weeks ago. So it was like, and it's a great spot, very cool place. So I feel like those places are kind of like home basey, but a lot of the places that I was going to before coronavirus shut everything down was. A lot of those places are gone now, or they moved, or, they just evaporated,
Now, talk to me about, we all have our collaborators, friends, muses, whatever you want to call these folks, but who would you say in your time of being on the scene, who would you say you've gravitated to most in your comedy circle? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to give me one guy, but, if there's like, a couple guys
down here
or females that are involved in the comedy scene that you are intertwined with in some respects.
Yeah, I mean, Sergio for sure has been like a huge help to me because, I'm very socially awkward until you get to know me. And so I'm not like the type to kind of just walk up and be like, hey, other comedian, good to meet you. But Sergio is very open about, chilling, and he's been a huge help to me in terms of, getting on stage, and he's got me hosting the Focal open mic. So it's very like humbling to be part of that, Kind of feels like a little like mentor-mentee type of situation.
Yeah, and I see him as one of the top guys, and everyone has their opinions, of course, and I don't consider mine superior to anybody else's, but I watched Sergio really, and I've seen it with some musicians like Punkowski, who mixed and mastered my record. When I first started open mic, Punkowski was there every week, same time to sign up, and a lot of times he'd come and he would set up his own sound for a 6 or 7 minute performance.
Yeah.
Tear it all down and be right back the next week. Sergio was a guy that I saw really, when he started open mic, was just kind of, oh, maybe I'll get on, maybe I won't stay, whatever, into a guy that was there every single week performing in front of the big crowds, the small crowds, really working it out.
He hustles, and that was like a huge inspiration to me who, before Churchill's was just a casual once or twice a week roots and speakeasy open mic. I wasn't really performing to big crowds. I wasn't, getting to know other comics like that. And so seeing, Sergio going out and doing it was like a big, thing for me. I wouldn't have been at Churchill's unless he told me about it, So I do really appreciate him for that.
Well, I see that the comedy scene really, when I took over the open mic, we really had nobody there. I think the first feature, there was like 6 or 7 people there, and they were probably all performers. But I saw a shift that took place of where comedians started to come in droves to the open mic. I mean, that's the first time I saw, I don't know if you know David Martin. The first time I saw David Martin, I thought he was hilarious. And
he's great.
And I met John there. I met Theo there very, very early on. Maybe even before I hosted, I met John and Theo. But the Churchill's open mic became, mainly because of John and Theo and Sergio putting the word out, they brought in so many comedians, and most of them stayed long term. And I think that was a beautiful thing, because Sergio was telling me one night, he said, I tell the other comedians that we're getting, pushed around for 4 or 5 minutes. He's like, but up here, I know that if I'm rolling at 7 minutes, you're not going to cut me off.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I like to see that momentum. And if he's rolling or you're rolling or somebody's rolling, whether it's music or whatever, I'm not going to cut that off for the sake of, some rules.
Well, and it's like instantly a welcoming environment. Like I felt like from the second I got there, regardless of the fact that I performed like late as fuck, it was, everybody there was super cool, and it just felt right. I think Sergio and a lot of those guys think the same shit too. That it's just like it's a spot. We all really want it back.
Me for sure. I hope that something can be made to where we can be back there sooner than later. One thing I did want to talk to you about, one of your bits that I love the most, and I think maybe the first time I heard you tell it was we did the showcase for John Everman's comedy special, and you told the bit about how you relayed the terms of smoking pot around your mom, that you're going to your meditation garden. What a great bit. If you could share a little bit of that with everybody, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's one of the clips I sent you. So we'll get into it, but... Since we have that, don't just spoil it, but give them a little teaser. Yeah, I'll give you a little to it. It's based on, like, true fact. I live with my mom because college worked out. And...
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You're making me feel less bad about not going. Thank you for that.
It's a scam. I had a great time. Don't get me wrong. I had a fucking blast. But
you seem like a guy that would have had a good time in college. Like you made the most of it.
Really
You're the guy that says, I'm going to make the most of this experience.
Yeah. I had a bumpy start, but a strong finish.
That's all that matters.
But yeah, so, one of the skills I developed in college was I got very adept at smoking weed.
Yes.
Dad, if you're listening to this, everything I'm saying is a lie. I have to say that because
I'm not blurring any of this. I'm not
it's
censoring
fine. No,
you at all.
You don't have to. I may not send him the link. He really wants to listen to it, but we'll see. But anyway, my mom, she's like cool-ish with it, but she doesn't, want me doing it in the house, and she doesn't want to know about it because it's, it's illegal.
It's still taboo,
a
little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of exactly the time she came up in. Like alcohol's cool, but weed is no.
Yeah.
So
you can destroy your liver, but God forbid.
Yeah, so I switched the word smoking out for something else, and I talk about it a little more in the bit, but it's just been the best thing about that joke for me is like one, you can pull so many different ideas out of that one little bit. But also it's just like kind of rooted in reality. And I think those are like my favorite jokes or, bits that come out of, true things that happened to me in my life.
Yeah.
So
when you're coming up with a bit, do you know that it's a bit, or are you thinking, okay, I'm going to create a bit, or are you, the bit comes along through real life interaction, you say, oh, damn, that's a bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a mix. Like my writing process is so like scrambled. When I know I have to write something, I type it out, and I usually have like a story or a situation I can pull from that's funny, and then the bits come as I'm writing it. I relay these.
So just to be clear and detailed, you have voice memo it on your phone, you write down a couple lines on your notes, and you come back to it. How does
so when I think of something, I used to write it on my phone. I have like a little joke notebook here because I feel like it's better to just like physically write things sometimes, and only I can read my handwriting, so nobody can like steal or reproduce my work.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah, so I'll usually I'll write down something that I want to develop later, and then when it's time, like for example, when we were coming back from COVID, the first show that I did was John's show. He hit me up out of the blue, and I was already having a really good day, and I was like, okay, like I guess I gotta.
It's rolling.
And I hadn't written comedy since like the beginning of the pandemic. Like I was playing so much fucking Animal Crossing.
Okay,
it's a great game.
Are you being endorsed to say that?
I'm a secret agent from Nintendo.
That's fantastic. That's great.
No, but so it got me writing again, and so when I need to write a set, I sit down, I start typing on the computer, and so I'll write that out, and I'll come up with bits like as I go, and then I practice it like in my head, because you can't read, like if you want to find a nice balance of being prepared and being loose. Because if you read through your set a million times and then you go on stage and you perform it, you're gonna sound rigid. You know, you're gonna sound like you're giving a fucking speech and debate in 8th grade.
So you have to have it down.
Yeah, you want to have it down, but you don't want to have it like
robotic,
fully down, and you also don't want to like not have certain parts down. Like the worst thing that's happened to me on stage is I've like forgotten a joke and just like I'm just like like you hate that shit. So there's a weird middle ground that I haven't perfected yet of like, you know, being prepared and being unprepared. Because sometimes the funniest shit you come up with is loose and just out of nowhere.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. And I think that, you know, I always try to think in terms of perfection, even though I'm not a perfectionist in general. When I'm performing, I want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
But yet I love all the moments I see a musician or a comedian stumble. You know, there's something that's makes them human in that moment, you know? But yet I don't know how to really apply that to, like, when I screw up, it's the end of the world, and I'll tell my girl, I say, well, that was the wrong note. And she's like, nobody else knew that besides you, you know?
Well, and I mean, that's the thing is if you fuck up as a comedian, you can sometimes play that into, you know, part of your act. Like if you fuck up a joke, sometimes it can be funny.
Timing is a lot.
Timing, you know? Yeah, exactly. You know, but that's like sometimes the funniest parts of my set have been me fucking up something and just being self-aware of it. You know, because that's the thing I think that comedians have, you know, over other stage performers is a lot of their shit's, you know, very like directly relatable. You know. Yeah,
and. Maybe it was Seinfeld. I think it was Louis C.K. I heard say that just the moment he was loading his kids into the car and his family into the car, and he gets them all loaded in, he puts his wife in her seat on the passenger side, shuts the door, and from the time that he walks around from the passenger door to the driver's side, that's his vacation.
Yeah.
And I think it was him or Seinfeld that said that just that observation of life and saying things that you think about all the time but you never really verbalize, that's the true greatness of comedy. That's you're reassembling, you know, things that happen in your life to create this bit.
For sure. I mean, you ask any comic, you know, anywhere, the best moments that they have on stage are when they just kind of like offhandedly say something and it gets a huge reaction.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the like irony of it is you spend all this time writing these jokes that you think are fucking hilarious, and then you'll say one of those and they bomb. And then you'll just be riffing, you know?
Yeah.
I have I have a new intro joke about, you know, how people like shout woo when you ask them how they're doing and how that would be like a weird context like anywhere else. And I came up with that just on the fly, and it's like, you know, it gets more laughs than my fucking actual jokes. So it's
I find too that there's the comedians, and you'll know this because we've had multiple conversations right before I go on stage or you go on stage, and you know there's comedians around or musicians around. A lot of the times, the funniest things that the comedians will say will be off stage. Yeah, you know, in conversation, and then they get up on stage with their prepared material, and maybe they'll have a response, maybe they won't. But you'll leave and go home that night and think, oh, you know what, that was really funny from a conversation that was not, you know, set up or anything like that off stage.
Well, yeah, I mean, so, like some of the best shit I come up with is just, you know, sitting around talking to my friends. Like I think I'm way funnier telling a story to my friends than I am telling a story to a bunch of strangers on stage. Like there's just some kind of, I want to get to that level of being comfortable where I feel like I'm on stage talking to my friends and not to, you know, nameless faces. Yeah. Because I think
you want them to feel like they are connected, like they know you.
Well, and that's when I think I'm my best self. You know, because when I started doing comedy, I mean, my friends would call me out on it all the time. You know, I'd be telling them a story and they'd be like, "Are you fucking workshopping material on me right now?" And it's like,
I used one of your jokes when I was. John told me, he's like, for that special, he's like, if you could be a little funny, he's like, that would be great. You know, and I was like, okay. I was like, maybe I'll tell a couple of jokes before I play, and. So I just went into, you know, the roast mode of making fun of you guys a little bit, and I think I compared Theo to Kevin Hart.
Yep.
I said my nephew Kevin Hart was here, and then you opened, for those that don't know, Jack opens his sets talking.
You did him dirty. He's way funnier than Kevin
Hart.
Oh,
yeah. You know what I wanted to say? He kind of reminds me of Jimmy Butler a little bit.
I could see that.
A little bit. Yeah. Like a Jimmy Butler, Kevin Hart baby.
I mean, I think Jimmy Butler would be good at stand-up comedy.
He probably would be.
Like, I think he's fucking hilarious.
And he's totally into the Miami lifestyle now. You know, he's wearing the Cubano shirts with the hat, smoking cigars, playing dominoes.
He's the best thing that ever happened to our team, besides Goran Dragic.
Oh, I'm a big fan of Dragic. I love an underrated person, whether it's in basketball or in life in general. But Oh yeah, fantastic. The Lakers series would have been a big difference to have him playing. But what I was saying was that, for those that don't know, Jack opens his sets talking about his appearances, similarities to the great Princess Diana. And so I think I made a joke that my brother, sister Ellen DeGeneres was here with me. So yeah, I tried to be funny. I mean,
listen, like every, I think you also called me like Ashley Olsen or something like that.
I don't know if that was that night, but maybe at some point.
And the thing is, like, anytime anybody like insults my appearance, it just gives me more material to
the
work
listeners
with.
thinking, man, he's such an asshole, I swear. Now, the thing I wanted to ask you was about, we're going to ask Jack a couple more questions, then play another bit of his, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about the album. But the thing I wanted to talk to you about, Jack, was... So you had to tell me, like, I know your mom, but never met your dad, and the rest of met the rest of your family a little briefly, but and I know your mom's super supportive. What did your parents think? What was that conversation like when you said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going to do comedy"?
Yeah, I mean, I'll preface this by saying just like my parents are incredibly supportive. Like I'm a very blessed person to just have parents like that, because a lot of people don't have that shit, and you don't realize it at first. You take it for granted sometimes, but my parents, have always supported me regardless of what I do. And so yeah, I mean, obviously, my mom comes to all my shows. She honestly
one of the best people to have in a crowd, because she actually has enthusiasm.
Oh yeah, no, she's exactly. You want her at every show. And my dad he's a little bit of a tougher nut to crack, and for good reason. He's just a very he wanted me to be a lawyer, I think.
Okay.
Because when I was applying to colleges,
I don't see it, Jack. I'm sorry.
No, of course, yeah. And that's the thing. That's the thing is when I was trying to, I would always just shrug him off. He'd be like, FSU has a really good law school, and I would literally just, it's not my thing.
Cool.
And then when I was graduating, I talked to him, I was like, Dad, I think maybe I should go to law school after college. And he looked at me and he was like, Jack, I don't think you're cut out for it.
That's a great bit right there. That's a great bit.
So, but he's, it's definitely not something he understands as much as, like a, whatever you would consider a traditional job, but and part of it I think too is a lot of my materials about him. So that it can be tough to support a guy who's like roasting you on stage after you birthed him. Totally
analyzing your whole fatherhood.
But listen, I will say, like, he makes an effort to be supportive, and I appreciate that. It goes a long way. And the thing too that kind of, he would always ask me this in college. He'd ask me, what do I aspire to? Because I was just fucking around for like 3.5 years of college.
We all were.
Yeah, of course. That's what you do. And it's like I said on that FNL stage, or WNL, because we were Wednesday Night Live.
Yes.
That was when I was like, I have the answer to this question, and so I told him, and we had conversations about it, and obviously he's, the practical, like, are you sure, because this is going to be hard. It's like, it's
nothing's easy,
and
is
it
what,
can't be and it can't be your main thing until you're making serious money from it. You have to have a solid plan, which he's right about it. And so I remember we had a conversation about it, at Flanagan's, shouts out.
Yes.
And my brother was on the camp of like, you need to like go all in on this, and my dad was on the camp of, like maybe just keep it a side hustle. And my brother's another, like, I think he's my biggest fan of all, and I fucking love that kid.
Yes.
That's just me being sentimental.
That's okay.
But yeah, so we had that conversation, and the day after, I ended up finding out about Hannibal Buress was hosting an open mic at Gramps.
Oh, wow.
In Linwood, just a very spontaneous sort of thing. And I went on my lunch break. I got one of the lifeguards to cover for me for an extra hour so I could be gone for a little bit. And I just went out there. I did my set. He riffed off one of my jokes, and I was like, "Fuck! I have to keep doing this shit.
Yes.
I can't." But it's
that's a great story. I didn't even know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was the first time I did stand up down here in Miami.
Wow.
Because I hadn't done it since I left Tallahassee, and it was really cool. But yeah, I mean, my dad is, obviously I can tell that it's, he's a practical guy, and I don't think it comes from a place of like malice, but he's been more supportive about it, and he pitches me jokes sometimes,
Yeah.
So
well, we're in a generation where, there's a lot of guys, young guys that are really coming up, and have made it in sketch comedy and made it in stand up. So it's there's paths and avenues to make it happen.
And you have to do shit to set yourself apart.
Yeah, and you have to work, you know.
Yeah. You have to work fucking hard. You really do. I mean, that's the thing, too.
A lot of musicians, I said this on the last podcast, on the first season, I said, you know, there are a lot of great musicians, and I'm sure it's the same with comedians. There's a lot of great artists that stay at home on Friday nights and Saturday nights. You know, I've heard plenty of musicians say, well, I play great, they should book me. Yeah. That's not how it works.
And by that same coin, there are comics selling out stadiums right now that aren't that funny, but they have hard. The work ethic.
Yeah. And I think you have to have it because work ethic trumps, you know, the idea of talent. I really believe that for sure, you know. Once again, this is the Local Sounds Podcast. I'm Taylor Davis. We're here with the incredibly funny Jack Norris. We're going to play another one of Jack's bits. We kind of touched on the bit a little bit.
It's the meditation one.
Yes, this is the meditation bit. So make sure that you check out Jack Norris and the funny things he has coming. There's supposed to be a show at Focal Brewing Company. Is it Focal?
Focal Beer Cafe.
Focal Beer Cafe. I keep messing that up.
Stay tuned. It'll be on a day.
It'll be on a day for sure. And Jack's also doing other things. When we have Churchill's open mic running, in my opinion, he's one of the headliners there. And when we get the main stage show going again at Churchill's, we'll make sure that Jack is up there for the entertainers and for the audience as well. So here's a little bit more of Jack Norris on the Local Sounds Podcast.
No, but listen, I love my parents. My mom comes to all my shows. She laughs at all my shows. But there's a problem because we're roommates, you know, and she's a great roommate. You know, she pays the rent, the entire share. Like, she's very generous. It's incredible. But the problem is, you know, like I smoke weed. Do we have any potheads in the crowd tonight? You guys look like you have your lives together, so probably not. But anyway, I smoke, and my mom's not super cool with that. So, you know, she's very upset by the fact that I smoke, and I don't do it in the house. You know, I'm very respectful about it. But the thing is, even the word smoking bothers her. So I came up with this new word, you know, to swap out for smoking, and that's meditating. So, for example, instead of smoking a joint in the back porch, I'm meditating in the Zen garden. Or, you know, I run out of weed, I need to pick up some more from my dealer. I'm meeting with my guru to restore my chakras. You know? Or let's say, my mom wants me to take out the trash, I'm too high, I don't want to get up. I'm sorry, Mom, I've meditated so hard earlier that I reached spiritual enlightenment and I can no longer move my physical body. You know, the other day my brother and I meditated on the back porch and we came inside and we still kind of smelled like weed and my mom got a contact lens.
We are back on the Local Sounds Podcast. This is Taylor Davis. I'm here with Jack Norris. That was just a comedy skit of Jack, so make sure that you check him out. Jack, how can they follow you again? I know it's Joker Reptile, right?
It's Joke Reptile.
Joke Reptile. You just changed it, so I'm trying to get familiar with it.
Yeah, because here's the thing. My ideal Instagram name is Joke Norris. I think that's funny. It belongs to some like random like father of three in like Nebraska, I want to say. I might message him and see if I could buy it off of him because I feel like he hasn't been active in like 5 years. But until then, Joke Reptile.
He has no idea that there's some comedian kid in Miami that's looking.
I'm dying out here because I'm not. I wish I was a reptile, but I'm not. So it doesn't make that much sense.
So you're a comedian. Jack and I, we're going to do some talking about the record. And I sent Jack... Yes, at night in the dark, and I made sure that I sent Jack, as well as a couple other people, an early recording or an early release of Cold in July, and you guys got to hear Gone Tonight. Those songs, as well as the song we're going to play next week, The Devils Are Here, are available on all the streaming platforms, and now Jack is going to ask me a few questions about the records.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start just by saying... this is not like the type of music that I usually listen to. Like,
Fair enough.
I'm a sad indie girl guy. You ever heard of Mitski?
No, okay. I have not.
Well,
no.
Mitski's the type of music you listen to when a girl tells you she just wants to be friends. And so sorry, I wanted to slide that joke.
It's okay. That's good. That's good. That's perfect.
I liked it. I mean, I really did. It's good because the thing about me when I listen to music is I like music that like takes me places. You know what I mean? And I feel like when I listen to your songs, it takes me to like a log cabin in the woods.
Okay.
In the woods. And
That's the first time I've heard that. That's great.
And maybe there's like a lake out there.
There would be,
and
yeah.
it's foggy in the morning.
Yes.
And I planned it. I feel like it was like cold in July was the morning when you wake up and you're having the coffee.
Yep. This is great.
Gone is when you're going for a walk, like in the daytime at lunch
Yes.
with your dog, and maybe there's like a friendly snapping turtle that you feed biscuits to at the lake.
Why would you have biscuits just randomly? You just carry
To
biscuits
feed the
with you?
snapping turtles.
To feed the okay.
I'd like to
okay.
be prepared. And then the Devils Are Here is like when you have people over and you have like a bonfire and you're just like jamming, you know, like that's kind of like how the lens through which I was viewing
You
it.
just described the 3 songs as getting you through your day, morning, afternoon, and night. Yeah, that's probably, I never,
And so
great.
I was curious as to if that's like, is that the vibe that you're trying to convey with this album? Like,
not at all. Not at all. No, I always say that you don't know what the songs are about until you write them and then you hear them back, because you're disconnected at that point, because it's out there and you're listening to it and you're forgetting that you're the one doing it. You know? And that's you that's singing and playing. So no, I don't really think about it much. The songs kind of tell me afterwards what they're about. But I do see exactly what you're saying.
You can kind of see it, right?
Cold in July is definitely. Someone told me the other day. I played it for Lucas Jolton, a great local musician, amazing guitar player, plays in Brian Del Toro's band, and he said it sounds. Was it him that said that? No. It was Chris Mullins. I just gave Lucas a plug, but Chris Mullins of the Mojo Hands band told me it sounds like a Christmas song, and I was like, I'll take it, you know. And I released it today, and today's the coldest day we've had in Miami.
That's
in a
the
while.
thing. I was gonna tell you, you
Pretty
fucking made it.
nuts,
you made
right?
it cold here. I had this whole. I was gonna come in, and I was like, Taylor Davis, do you believe in climate change? Because it was actually pretty hot this July.
Yeah, it was.
And then
you
I
know what, though?
walked outside, and it was cold, and I was like, this motherfucker. He dropped the song, and it changed the weather.
Somebody told me, they asked me not to use their name, but somebody said recently, they said, you live in Miami. It's never cold in July.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I know. I said, but I'm not from here. But
Yeah.
it's a metaphor.
That's the
But yeah, it's always sweltering hot. But today it's like 50s, and they said tonight's gonna get to the 40s. Personally,
Beautiful.
I'm excited about
Beautiful.
it. You were born and raised here in Miami? Mm-hmm. Oh, so
I am not one for the cold, but I look very cute in winter clothes. If I was rocking a beanie right now, imagine.
You gotta head to Paxton right after we get through here.
Yeah. I mean, so genre-wise, would you would put this in the folk category? Do you think?
Yeah,
I know nobody wants to get locked into genres.
Yeah. You know what? Probably I've been really loving. There's country music nowadays, which is not what country music really is to me. You know, like country music is Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson.
Cold beer and Jesus.
Yeah, and now it's more. About like how big your truck is.
Yeah.
And barbecuing on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Like that's not to me. I think pop music has had such a big influence, maybe because of Taylor Swift and people like Miranda Lambert. I'm sure you do.
I love her.
It's become too poppy for me personally.
Yeah.
You know, there's some greatness in it, but you have to search really hard. Like I think Eric Church is a great artist, but a lot of the music that I write is more in like the Americana, folksy, like Chris. I love Chris Stapleton and Jason Isbell, who wrote the score for A Star Is Born.
Yeah.
And Sturgill Simpson is another big one. Brandy Carlisle, you know, and a lot of these folks, they're the best at what they do. They can't get played on the radio because people want to hear, you know, the poppy country music. So I would say, folksy, Americana.
Yeah, because I was trying to describe it. You know, I was talking to my brother about how I was going to hop on the podcast, and you know, he was like, my friend was there. He was asking me like, what kind of music you play, and I was like, I lean towards folk, and then my brother was like, oh yeah, because he plays the hummus.
Oh, the hummus.
My brother confused the word hummus for
With
harmonica.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. I don't know. I never saw that as a comparison, but that's great.
Yeah, this is a slight tangent, But I noticed when I came to see you at Syndicate, and you had like multiple harmonicas. What's that about?
Okay, so each one is in a different key.
Really?
So yeah, so when you play in G or C or F, if you don't play, now there's some cases where you can cross the harmonicas and you can play in a different key, but primarily you play in the key. So I think I have 9 of them now. There's 7 in this bag right here. Wow. I think it's A, B flat, C, D, E, F, G, and then I just bought an A flat and a G flat. And yeah, so if you write a great song and you're like, man, I really want to put a harmonica in this, and it's in some strange key, you might have to spend $40-$50 on a harmonica in order to be able to play it. So yeah, that's really...
I think that's such a cool instrument. I think too, like I feel like my favorite of the 3 songs is probably Devils Are Here, just because of like how prominent the harmonica is featured. And I think it's like, I feel like it's not an instrument that people like use too much.
No, it's really goes back to like Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, like the Dust Bowl like music. So, but I'm a big Dylan fan. We talked about Dylan on the podcast with David Rotella, Dylan and Springsteen, and even Petty played a little harmonica. I think all these guys, John Fogerty, they all dabble in the harmonicas. But I've actually been playing the harmonica since I was like 8. My parents bought me one from a Cracker Barrel restaurant for like $7 or $8, you know, and I just stuck with it. And then when I started to realize how to use them with the guitar, I just bought a set, you know, with the different keys instead of, well, I'm only gonna play harmonica when I play in this key. The keys are all over the place. You never know what key you're gonna play in, but. I feel way more confident. I was telling Ryan Rachel, a musician friend of mine last night, I was saying, I feel way more confident in my ability to be able to improvise with a harmonica than with the guitar. You know, I've only been playing the guitar for like 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
So, but the harmonica a lot longer than that.
Wow,
so
that's fucking cool.
I mean the hummus.
No, the hummus, yeah. I thought that shit was so funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's fucking great.
Like, yeah, you gave me an in on the podcast. And the other thing I wanted to ask you too, because we were talking about, you know, my writing process. And I'm curious as to what yours is like, because, you know, it's like, I feel like that's the one thing comedians and musicians have in common is you got to write shit.
You got to write, yeah. And most of it is shit, you know. I feel like you have to siphon through it like they siphon for gold, you know, and you're not going to find, they say, you know that phrase, a diamond in the rough. Well, you don't find diamonds in the rough all the time. You have to siphon to find them. So I write down, I have this notes on my phone. I'd like to consider myself, every time I do a new album, I buy a notebook, but I never really use it that much. I'm usually writing on my phone nowadays. And I have this list of unused lines. Everything starts with a line, I feel like. And then I try to make the music work to the line. And like on Gone, I had Bumming Cigarettes from an Old Cuban Man. I had that written down. And that was from a real life Yeah, that was a real life experience. There's a supermarket up the street. Next to it is a little Cuban coffee bar, and they're open like usually all night. And I used to and I'm still trying to fiend off of cigarettes, but I would, you know, be leaving the grocery store. There'd be one of these guys at the bar right next to the grocery store, and I'd be walking to my car and bum a cigarette off them. So it's like comedy in that way that most of the great lines come from experience and something that somebody says, you know. One night I was with my dad and I was drinking, you know, nicely, and it was me, my brother, and my dad. And me and my brother were drinking in the laundry room of the house that we were staying in Alabama. And my dad came back there, and we were just, you know, we had way too much to drink. And my dad just starts talking to us, and we're all talking and stuff. And my dad started talking about the old days and going to the racetrack when he was young. And all this stuff was just prime material. He gave me enough material for a song. It was great, very poetic. He's not, you know, necessarily a poetic guy, but the words and the story was very poetic. And I thought to myself in that moment, I said, "Oh, I'm going to write it down later." And then later, I couldn't remember any of it. So now,
gotta write it down.
And I beat myself up about that for a while because there was a fantastic song in that. So from that time on, I kept this list of unused lines, and it's massively long, and I was assuming that most of them would get to be able to be worked out on the record, but I'm showing Jack right now how many lines.
That's awesome. Because the thing is, you'll find your way back to those.
Well, you think that you're going to use all of them on the record, and then it turns out that when you finally come up with the music, which to me is the toughest part, but then when you come up with the music, most of those lines don't work. And they have to be spontaneous. Maybe one line will set you on your way, but it's not. You're not going to be able to use every line.
I can literally connect that to comedy right now too. I was watching a fucking Dave Chappelle special the other night, and he was saying like part of his he writes like he'll think of a punchline before he thinks of the joke, and he'll toss it in a fishbowl. and I'll just like pull one out and try to write a joke about it, you know. And that's kind of the thing I see too with like you writing all the lines is when you need them, you know, you have shit to like bring in for when you're trying to write.
Yeah,
stuff.
or maybe
So that's cool.
maybe they're topic setters too.
Yeah.
You know, like I have a song on the new record called White Line Prison, and it's basically about just being like, you know, knowing that your life's supposed to be a traveler's life, you know, knowing that you're supposed to be on the road a lot. Musicians, comedians, if you're touring around, you're supposed to be on the road. Yeah, it's going to happen, especially for you. This song was basically about being a slave to the road, you know, but I had a line about my grandfather, and that started the song, and then I used it again for the final verse. It's something about my so many songs on the new record. I'm still trying to memorize all the lyrics, but it's something about I still got the bullet shells from the gun you used to cock. You never killed a man, but I'm sure you thought about it a lot. And I have my grandfather's up here somewhere. I have bullets from his gun before he passed away. My grandmother gave those to me. So that led into creating a song. You know, I had none of the other lines written down, but that got me started. And then that line helps you find other lines. So I think the writing always comes first, the music comes second, and then you're trying to just blend the two together. And then you're trying to sing well, you're trying to play well.
Yeah,
you know,
because that's the other thing too is you have a lot more to consider. Like I go on stage and I just fucking talk and like try to maybe like that's,
you're like a freestyle rapper.
kinda. I mean maybe like
you have an idea about what you're gonna do,
like
but you're totally open to. And with musicians, the improv comes in like a jam.
It's like the non-Eminem white guy version of freestyle rap.
Yes. But there's some similarities between riffing and freestyling and improving. There's a thin line between, I think.
I mean, there's a lot of things you can connect with any sort of stage performing type of thing. But that's the thing I've always respected about music is it's more than just the lyrical content of the song. It's like you said, the guitar, it's the singing, it's, you know, like the production.
Everything has to blend nicely, you know, and you can have a great song and then bring in a wrong feature part, you know, like, oh, I'd love to have violin, or I'd love to have, you know, whatever on this. And like Nave Rose, who did Gone and Cold in July, like I want to use her on everything.
Oh, she was fantastic.
You know, I love it. It creates that, she's a big part of both those songs in creating a mental landscape.
That violin player was in the cabin with me while I was listening to your song.
Yeah, just serenading you. Someone told me the song sounded, Cold in July sounded like something that would have been on the Titanic. And I was like, oh, that's a great compliment. As long as it didn't happen the night that the ship struck the iceberg.
Day one when everything was cool.
Yes, and it was sunny out before it got cold and bad shit happened. But I think that you have to know, like, man, no matter what I want or I don't want, like those songs were perfect for it. Yeah. And I played her another song, and I really wanted her to be on it. She is on another song on the record, so that's 3 songs for her. But I played her a 4th one. That's how much I love what she did. And she's like, I don't see myself on this. And I immediately was like, you know what? Then that means that there's something else for it. And you can ruin a song by bringing in an element that's not right, you know, even if you want it.
I'll put this out there. I play a pretty mean tambourine.
Oh, boy.
If you ever need.
I'm going to find a way. Mark it down that we said it here on the Local Sounds podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to find a way.
It glows in the dark.
It glows in the dark. That'll be the follow-up sequel album.
That's my backup plan if comedy doesn't work out.
Yep. Well, we have Jack Norris here with the Local Sounds podcast. I want to thank everybody I don't know if you had any other questions, but I want to thank Jack Norris for joining us today. What a fantastic person. One of the best people I've met on the scene. This is my time to be a little emotional. There's not many men that I kiss on the forehead, but I love Jack Norris, and not only Jack Norris as a person, but what he's done for the comedy scene. We get all kinds of first-timers and newcomers to Churchill's Open Mic and any of the other events that we put on in the city. And if they see Jack, you know, they can see him do well on stage. Then when he gets off stage, he's not a dick, you know. And that means a lot for comedians that are up and coming that need advice.
I'm actually too nice. That's why we cut the Shark Tank sketch from WNL, as I was supposed to be mean, and I just couldn't do it.
Oh man, yeah. Jack told me earlier he couldn't be on a roast. I was really hoping to. I told John Everyman for his comedy special, his last special, we should have done a roast. That would have been a lot more effective. Do a comedy roast of you with musicians and comedians. And he's like, no. So both John and I.
I'm only good at roasting myself. That's
yes.
You put a mirror in front of me, I'll crush a roast battle. But
I already know, like, people in Miami, if we did have a roast that I was involved in, I already know, like, what they would bother me for. They pretend to do my accent, which nobody, I'm waiting for a good Taylor Davis impression. Nobody is, they all suck.
Yeah?
The impressions.
Does Sergio do one?
I don't know. I don't think so.
He does some killer impressions. He never does them on stage, but he's got some
He
bangers.
probably could do it. He probably has a secret Taylor Davis impression I don't know about because he thinks I might be pissed off about it. But there's definitely some impressions that I got in over time. Paul Lunaire did a great one. He was a guy that used to host some of the events. And
I met him over at Speakeasy.
Yeah, very talented guy. And Paul used to do an impression of me, and it was probably the closest one. But it still was not great.
Yeah.
Nobody's got it. But make sure you check out Jack Norris and his comedy. There'll be plenty more coming now that we're starting to open up a little bit in Miami. Not a lot, but a little bit, so there's a little bit of things going on. So if you want to come out and be safe, a lot of these events, if you're, worried about social distancing or you're worried about masks or anything like that, these events all, do a good job of
We cough on you right when you come in. We
Yes.
just cough right on your face. We just get it out of the way.
But I like to encourage people to come out to the comedy shows in your area, come out to the music shows. Make sure that you support these artists, and make sure you follow Jack Norris on Joke Reptile.
Joke Reptile.
On Instagram. Where else can they follow you and keep up with what you're doing?
I mean,
FarmersOnly.com. Where is it? Twitter?
I'm thinking about making a Twitter. Stay tuned for that. Right now, my main comedy stuff is on Instagram. I post about it on Facebook every once in a while, but it definitely Instagram is where I'm most prominent right now. I would say.
You have done anything on this podcast at all, make sure that you go follow Jack Norris at Joke Reptile. Download Gone if you haven't, and go ahead, Jack.
I'll plug one more thing. I have a sketch on YouTube from my WNL days. It's called Pipe Dreams. It's about a guy that auditions for a movie, gets a call back, and his competition is just an inanimate object. It's just a bong. Check it out, Pipe Dreams WNL, and check out all their shit because they're really some of the funniest people.
And
I've
we're gonna
known.
attach that link in the description of this video, so make sure that you guys check it out. This has been the Local Sounds Podcast with the great Jack Norris, the funny Jack Norris. Make sure that if you're here in Miami, you go check out what he's doing. You can see him at the open mics. You can see him doing specials. You can see him on curated events. This is a hardworking guy, one of my favorite comedians on the scene, one of my favorite human beings on the scene, and I'm honored, Jack, that you sit down with me.
Yeah, it was great to be here, man. Y'all go listen to his fucking album. It's good.
Thank you. This was Jack Norris. This is the Local Sounds Podcast. You can catch us next week with more interviews. We're going to be interviewing more musicians. We're going to be interviewing more comedians. So make sure you guys check it out, and make sure that you give it a share with your friends. And most importantly, make sure that you support local artists if you have the opportunity to, because that's really what this podcast is all about. Once again, I'm Taylor Davis. This is the Local Sounds Podcast. Have a good rest of your night.